Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope y'all are having a great day. I'd like to talk about one of the stories in this book here, Kull Exile of Atlantis. It's the first story in the book, an introduction to the character of Kull, and it was actually at one point in time published as Exile of Atlantis, but in this book it's presented just as Untitled Story. The reason for this is, as I understand it, the story was actually never published while Robert E. Howard was alive, but was subjected to one of these pastiche treatments after his death. Here it's presented with Robert E. Howard's original manuscript. The only corrections are typographical errors, things that happen when you're working at a typewriter and maybe you misspell a word or something like that. So that's the only corrections you get with this. I wanted to talk about it because I think it's a really good example of how short fiction can focus on things other than plot and really have a high impact, and especially have a very good mood to it. This story is much more like an aphorism, or more like a literary equivalent of a painting, than it is a traditional story where you have conflicts and resolutions. The only big conflict is really presented pretty late into the story and is immediately resolved. So it's much more about the exposition of the world that Kull inhabits and the exposition of Kull as a character. And this is done predominantly indirectly through Kull's interaction with two of his companions. In this story and in this world, what would become the world of Hyboria as Robert E. Howard continued to develop this character, and then the character which was kind of adapted from Conan the Barbarian, a little bit more famous. This world, Atlantis, is not a super advanced civilization. It's an island of barbarians. And so this is what we get. We get these primitive tribesmen journeying back to their tribe and having a conversation around the fire. That really sets a lot of mood, though. They hear a tiger roar in the distance, and they start talking about the mythology of the striped men. And we're not sure if they are talking about tiger men or just tigers, and they have some sort of more animistic relationship with tigers, but they start talking about the mythology. And here's where we get our first real introduction into who Kull is. Kull says he doesn't believe the myths and legends of his people. We also find out they're his adopted people, that he was actually an even more savage creature that lived alone, basically away from this tribe, and was adopted into them. He says he doesn't believe them. And the tribesmen say, of course they're true. They've been passed down since eternity. That's why they're true. And Kull rebukes that and says there's no reason really to believe him. He says he doesn't believe him. So there's a conflict between him and his tribesmen, and they rebuke him for mocking the beliefs of the people that have taken him in. Now, a little bit of spoilers here, but this is the only real plot spoiler. There's only two scenes in the story. This one, which kind of sets this mood of this savage Atlantis, talks about this far-off country called Volusia, which Kull would actually become king of later in other stories, and how they're expressing some animosity towards them and hatred, and how they harry the Atlanteans and enslave them and things like that. That's really setting up what would happen in the second scene as far as conflict and resolution. Second scene, they come back to their village. A little bit of spoilers, but this is a very short story, so hopefully you don't hate me too much for it. They're going to burn a woman alive because she has married someone of this other tribe. Basically, she's married a Volusian, and that is a terrible offense to these tribesmen, so they're going to burn her alive. And the resolution is Kull, rather than saving her as a traditional hero might, takes his knife out of his belt and kills her. And then, of course, runs away from the tribe, and that's how he becomes the Exile of Atlantis, is that he chooses to give this woman a swift death rather than to subject her to the torture of being burned alive, because she violated some moral code that he doesn't understand or agree with from these Atlanteans. And that really is Kull's character. He walks alone, he's brooding, he's philosophical, he's unbelieving in a lot of senses, and he's also very, very strong and powerful compared to others, kind of like Conan. But it's really more about his attitude, and that's really what we get on display in the very first story of Kull of Atlantis. I'd also like to show you all a little bit of some of the art that exists in this book, because I think it's actually pretty good art, and so you can get a little bit of a closer view of what's going on with Justin Sweet's art here. So we can take a look at it. It's just called Untitled Story. We have some great ink drawings of the barbarians kind of sitting around the fire and talking. We have some great portraits here of one of the barbarians, and this kind of chaotic ink work I think adds to the savagery of the piece. We have the striped men, and I presume this would be Kull, doing something with them, hunting with them, living with them. This painting of this drawing of a wide open scene with mountains. This is kind of the literary equivalent of a painting, as well as the barbarians kind of descending down into this valley, returning to their tribe, and this great chaotic two-side painting of the leader of the Atlantean tribe preparing to burn this woman, and Kull escaping up the cliff with the smoke underneath him. It's a really good little aphorism and story, and after that we pretty much move on to the first story, Shadow Kingdom, which I'll talk about another time. But I thought I'd show some of this art to you. It's really great, and I really appreciate the nice striking and chaotic colors, the strong emotion that's present here, because this is a story that's really much more about mood than it is about plot. So that's that. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Of course, I have books available too. Newest ones, Eyes on the Wall. This one came out the other month. It's a horror story. People are very surprised with the ending, so please do give it a check out. And then City of Silver, sequel to this, will be coming very soon as well. So thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time.